they do their thing. But this diffusing an organic identity into an abstract concept and then universalizing it, it's always universal. Well, that happened before the Jews were you even heard of the Jews. Back in ancient India, and no doubt about it, it happened, and they came back out of there into Europe and other things like that. White rabbits, that is. But there were no Jews around, is my point. Many of the traits that Judaism is simply modus operandi, like any other religion, but many of the traits we blame the Jews for, let me give you one very simply. Most of you have heard the Jews complain about self-hatred, and I've even heard white nationalists, brilliant white nationalists, go so far as to blame the Jews for our self-hatred. No, that's incorrect thinking. You have to always remember that the European Jews look like us. We don't look like them. So any traits that they have to come from us. We don't get traits from them. They may wear off on some different utopian philosophy they may develop, like Randianism or libertarianism. That may wear off on us, but that typically already fulfills a need there. A parasite can't affect a healthy host. There has to be something a gateway, and that gateway is typically some form of universalism. But that has to be present to begin with. But Jews look like us. Those pink rabbits, the pink Jew rabbits, they look like us. We don't look like them. European Jewry always complains about self-hatred, but it's not Semitic. It's not Semitic. Think about that one for a minute. This goes deep, deep into the Aryan gene pool, the indigenous white rabbit gene pool, and it was around long before there was ever such thing as a Jew. I won't go any more about the Jews, but maybe in the next episode I will. When I do a movie review, I'm going to do a movie review. Someone did a brilliant movie review, and it's kind of like a non-traditional movie review, and a white nationalist did it, and or someone attached to the struggle, the indigenous white rabbits of Europe and their struggle. But you have to always remember everything comes back to us. And if I were a white supremacist, I would just compare and contrast European with non-European Jewry and rest my case. Obviously, the difference is in the European gene pool. But what they get, their tendencies, are a lot of times are a mixed version of ours. But self-hatred, we didn't get it from them. No. You read about some of those ancient Hindus when they started browning out. They were, you want to talk about self-hatred. But back to environmentalism, let's talk about the difference between creative and destructive energy. Right now we're making a transition. The transition is happening right in front of your face. The internet did something amazing right in front of you. It took a very creative technology, the major media. That creative technology was then used for very destructive purposes. Wasn't it? Yes, it was controlled. It's controlled by and large. The major media is controlled by the Hebrews. The internet was something very creative. It came out of a defense establishment, scientists attached to defense. But what it did was it totally annihilated and destroyed the media, which had become very destructive. Television news everything had become very destructive. It totally destroyed it in a way that no one noticed. And that's what creative technology does. The internet is very environmentally friendly by and large. It doesn't I think it's not a negative or a positive on the environment. It's just there, but it's something very imaginative. It's something we've done. It's something that we own, actually. Very white rabbitish. But what it did was it totally left these destructive media behind, didn't it? And it not only totally left it behind, it annihilated it. I was reading an interview with one of these, I'm assuming it was a Hebrew rabbit, one of these Jew rabbits. I think it was like the CEO or COO or the CFO or something of Sony Pictures of America, not the one in Japan, but one of the divisions in America. And he said he wished the internet had never been invented. Well, I bet he does. I bet he does. But our next generation of energy our energy technology, which has been out a long, long time. If you read about Tesla, Nikola Tesla, who will end up being one of the giants of our race, forget about Einstein. Even Einstein said, forget about me. You know, you think I'm bright, I'm nothing compared to Tesla. He was right on that. That was a good call, Einstein. One of Einstein's better calls. But Tesla was brilliant, 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 brilliant. He had a car that ran off electricity. How does he get electricity? It gets electricity randomly coming through the air. But we've got a lot of technology that's been out a long, long time. And many of you, maybe you got into peak oil or you looked at some different alternative energies. You realize that the indigenous white rabbits of Europe, elements of it, have had their hands on stuff for a long, long time, but it's not out there. It's not, and guess what? It's not going to be out there until it's time. And I'll go into that in a few, but basically you're dealing with a very creative technology. It's not oil-based. It's not... well, with this one particular example, you can look up Tesla coils. That's Tesla coils. They get air right out of the ether. I mean, they get energy right out of the air. And, you know, they build these Tesla coils, and, you know, you build a box full of these things to run your whole house and stuff like that. It is the next generation technology. But you're not dealing with destruction. Most of you get in a car. When you get in your car and you start it, you're basically you're creating an explosion. An explosion is an act of destruction, isn't it? Yeah, you're destroying little gas molecules, or many explosions are going on. Explosion is always destructive. We're not dealing with explosion, but it's some types of implosion. It's the antithesis. It is kind of like what the internet did to newspapers. It is totally creative, but at the same time on a totally different pathway. Nothing's being destroyed by it. It is almost magical. But the easiest way for you to understand this is the way it was explained to me, the difference between nuclear fission and nuclear fusion. You see, fission produces many highly radioactive particles. Okay, fission reaction does not normally occur in nature. It's unnatural. Fission is the splitting of a massive atom into two or more smaller ones. Fission is basically destructive. Okay, and you know, one class of nuclear weapon is a fission bomb, or you know, atomic bomb. Atomic bomb is a basic fission bomb. Okay. But there's another type of nuclear energy called fusion, and there are weapons based on this at all. Again, anything that can be energized, anything that can produce, can run your car, can actually be a weapon. Sure. And when it comes to nuclear technology, you can have a power plant. You can also make a bomb out of it. So this stuff is, anytime you deal with any type of energy source, you're dealing with something that can be weaponized. And so nuclear fusion is basically fusion. It is few radioactive particles are produced by a fusion reaction, but if a fission, let's see here, what am I going to say here? Fusion occurs basically in stars, such as the sun. Fusion is basically highly natural. It occurs in nature, where fission does not occur in nature, normally. Fusion is fusing two or more light atoms into a larger one. And so basically fusion is more along the lines of a creative type of energy, where you're adjoining something. Doesn't mean it can't destroy all life in the area. It just means it's creative. You're not destroying atoms. You're not splitting atoms. You're adjoining the two. You're fusing. And so instead of fission, think fusion. Instead of explosion, think implosion. And all of our next energy sources, like that Tesla box, are dealing with, you know, these Tesla coils and stuff like that people are building, are dealing with that type of energy. But what you need to understand about fusion, or fusion bombs as opposed to atomic bombs, and I won't go into different fusion bombs can create fission triggers and other things like that. In other words, they use a trigger of one type of bomb to blow up another. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the energy source in general. It's very creative. But when you start talking about our next generation of energy that's been out a long, long time, if you look up Nikola Tesla and his electronic car, there's a lot of mystery behind this stuff. A lot of people that do research on alternative energies will tell you right away, we've had stuff for eons. But